you're wondering who that entrepreneur is, that's Vinod Khosla, one of the biggest VCs in clean tech. So, yeah. Anyway, welcome to everybody. Welcome and good morning. As Ranjana said, my name is BJ Arun. I'm originally from Bangalore, but for the last 30-some years, I've been living in the Silicon Valley. And so, you're going to have a lot of very, very accomplished green entrepreneurs speak all day today. But what I am going to do is talk a little bit about entrepreneurship in general and TiE in particular. So when I got to the US in the late 80s, I was still in my 20s. I had finished my engineering from Bangalore University, went there. And back then, if somebody of Indian origin even became a manager, it was cause for celebration because there were so few of us who had broken through the glass ceiling. And some of the early successes of people of Indian origin in the US, and you could count them on the fingers of one hand. So Vinod Khosla, who is now, as I mentioned, the large VC in the green tech space, he had co-founded and was CEO of a company called Sun Microsystems. Those of you who have been around may remember the Sun servers, which is pretty much what the internet was built on. So we had Vinod Khosla, we had Kanwal Rekhi, who had founded another company and taken it public called Exelan. Then we had Dr. Suhas Patil, who was a professor who founded a company called Cirrus Logic, again taken it public. But literally you could just name 4 or 5 people who looked like us who had made it. So these entrepreneurs came together in 1992 and said, how do we help other people become entrepreneurs or help other people from the community? And what they realized is rather than just write a few checks, and they could only write finite number of checks, right? I mean, they had created wealth, but there were only that many checks they could write to help others. They said, why don't we teach others how to create value and how to create wealth? And so that's how TiE was founded. It was back in 1992, and this is our 30th anniversary year, actually, for TiE Silicon Valley. And I had read about these people, in the newspapers, etc. And so, I, as a young man, I said, let me go and join TiE as a, just a regular member and volunteer. And what I found was people like these, names I mentioned, people who are household names in our community, they were actively, at TiE trying to help others and welcoming us, saying, okay, how can we help you? What can we do for you? And no money could buy us that kind of access, right? I mean, even if you saw them at a restaurant or somewhere else, you just can't go and approach them. But here was an organization which actually was looking to foster entrepreneurship and having us, come there and say, okay, let us help you. So, in these 30 years, and I'm going to speak specifically about my own home chapter, TiE Silicon Valley, the pendulum has swung mainly due to the efforts of organizations like TiE to a point where, as I mentioned early, if we just became a manager, people would open a champagne. Today, most of the CEOs of companies, the founders or co-founders of startups in the US have at least one person of Indian origin. They have come. And, I myself, and I'll give you my own example. I mean, when I joined, as I told you, I was working for somebody, I was still in my late 20s. And over the years, right, I got inspired by the people I saw. I said, okay, they look like me, they come from my country. If they could do it, perhaps I could do it. So inspiration is a big part of TiE. Networking is one of the most key things because however smart you are or whatever you know how to do, you need a network. You need a network of co-founders. You need a network for funding. You need a network to get customers. And you need a network to finally get an exit, right? So when you build value, when you build a company, you need to have somebody either help you do an IPO, a public listing, or acquire your company. So the power of the network is absolutely invaluable. And unless you come to organizations like TiE, you're not going to be able to build that network. However smart you are, however hard you work, you do need this network. So I would highly encourage everybody in the audience to join TiE Coimbatore. And not only does it give you access to the amazing entrepreneurs that Coimbatore has, but it gives you access to a global network of entrepreneurs. So if you need help in a different chapter, right? And I think Ranjana mentioned 12 chapters, we are up to 14 chapters now around the world. So if let's say you needed some help in the UK, or somewhere in the US, or in Africa, we have chapters there. So if you're visiting there for any kind of business, you just send us an email and we will connect you to those chapters, the leaders there, and then you get access to that network. Now, all of us who are doing this at TiE, Ranjana and me included, these are all volunteers. We do this pro bono, and we do this to give back, right? Because, as I said, that was sort of the ethos of the founders, is how do you give back to society? And we are giving back by helping other people create value. So TiE is unique in the sense it's one of probably the only not-for-profits which helps other people make profit. And so we are not a charity. We actually create millionaires and billionaires. And there has been a study done by Professor Annalee Saxenian from the University of California in Berkeley, where she has actually computed, and the collective value of the entrepreneurs in the TiE ecosystem is something like $2 trillion US, which is almost the size of the Indian economy. Right? And that's the collective value that various entrepreneurs have created. So, it's an invaluable organization. And unless you actually kind of get inspired by others, right? And there are some amazing entrepreneurs in this audience right here. You really have to learn from them. You need to be able to get inspired by them. You need to network with them. And so this is really what TiE is all about. I myself, in my journey, I have sort of benefited from all of these. And, the other important thing is when you come to TiE, you actually have to come to give, especially in the charter members. And charter members are a subset of accomplished entrepreneurs and business leaders. It's an invitation-only program. And I think in TiE Coimbatore, you have 50+ charter members. But you come here to give. You come here to inspire others, to give to others. But it's like good karma. When you come to do that, automatically you build a network of other people in your community, and you get back in spades. So you don't come here expecting that I'll get this and I'll get that, and I didn't get any benefit out of it, so I'll stop coming. That shouldn't be the attitude at all. Come here to give, and you will receive. At a minimum, you will build an amazing network of friends. Some of my closest friends in life are from the TiE network. So my own journey, I can share a little bit about that as well. I started my first company in 1994 called California Digital. And in about 10 years' time, and what California Digital was doing was we were building high-performance computers, or HPC. These are Linux-based servers, and we were gathering tens of thousands of CPUs and building very, very large high-performance clusters. And in 2004, we built the world's fastest supercomputer at the Lawrence Livermore National Labs. And this is the government lab in California. And that sale, that one computer we sold for about $10 million US. And just to put things in perspective, Cray, who was our biggest competitor, Cray Computers, the previous 2 years ago, they had built the fastest supercomputer for $500 million US. So you can see how many orders of magnitude cheaper we were. So we beat them at $10 million. And because what we did was we took off-the-shelf components and then harnessed the power of these commodity components to build a supercomputer. So the same year, 2004, the government of Karnataka, which is my home state, they recognized me with their Rajotsava Day Award, which is the highest civilian award of the state. And then, I kept building from that success. And then, at some point, we got acquired by another company. Most recently, I was CEO of a company called July Systems. And July Systems was in customer acquisition and customer engagement using mobile phones and Wi-Fi. So if you walked into a hotel like the Residency or any hotel, some people at the lobby might recognize you by face because, you're a well-known entity or whatever. But if you go to some other, let's say you went to the Taj Hotel, and their Taj has hundreds of locations everywhere. So other people and other locations may not know who you are. So using our software, what was happening is the moment you came into the Wi-Fi zone, it would ping your phone, and then immediately it would know that who you are, and your whole experience would change based on that. So, this company, July Systems, we partnered with OEM channel partners, and we worked with the people who were building the Wi-Fi equipment, and because it was a natural fit. They were selling the Wi-Fi hardware, and so we were the software that sat on top of it. And we did very well, and in August of 2018, we were acquired by one of our larger channel partners called Cisco Systems. So today, July Systems is a division of Cisco. And so that was a very, very good exit for us. We had about 500 team members, even in Bangalore, and each of them did extremely well financially as well as career-wise. They all have amazing jobs with Cisco today. So, so this has been my own journey, and then post the acquisition by Cisco, especially since I was the CEO, they put you on something called a gardening leave. And a gardening leave is where you get paid, but you don't have to go to the office and there are no deliverables. And they do that in California because, California doesn't have non-compete laws, which means that even after I sold the company to Cisco, the very next day I could start a competing company or poach people, steal people from there, etc. So one way they get you to not do that is put you on this gardening leave, because if you're an employee, then you're bound by the employment contracts and you can't do all of that. So I had some time where, they kind of put me on this gardening leave for 3 years, and also whatever payments they had to pay me, they make it an escrow. So they put it in an escrow and you get 1/3 of the payment every year. So if I quit after 2 years, then I would be leaving money on the table. The reason why I bring that up is that was my opportunity to give back to TiE, because I had benefited so much. So I dedicated the last 4 years to TiE. 2 years I spent as president of TiE Silicon Valley, and for the last 2 years I've been serving on the TiE Global Board of Trustees. And so this year I serve as chairman of the Global Board of Trustees. So in a sense, I'm sort of your head volunteer for all of the TiE people over here. So I'm going to take a break here, take a pause, and I don't know how many more minutes I have, but if you have any specific questions about TiE, happy to answer this right now. And if you're too shy to ask in an audience, then I'm also going to be around all day, so you can come and catch me, and I'll be happy to talk about it. So any questions? Ranjan, I'll pick on you. Any questions for me?
Engaged, how does it work in TiE then? Especially associate members.
Right. So one of my favorite quotations, especially about entrepreneurship, is you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So if you don't even sort of try, you're guaranteed you're going to miss, right? Because you're not even trying. So, believe it or not, every time I have gone to a conference or gone to a TiE meeting, I have always benefited by meeting somebody interesting, learning something new. So there is huge value in the power of the network. Now, I also recognize that not everybody is cut out to be an entrepreneur. So I have my own brother who lives in the Silicon Valley. He keeps talking about our brilliant ideas, but he never does anything about it. We have this conference, just like you have GreenCon, we have something called TiECon every year. About 5,000 people come in person for TiECon, and about 35 to 40,000 people attend virtually. So a good 45, 50,000 people come here. It's an expensive conference. It's about $500 US to attend. I can't give my brother a complimentary pass and get him to come. So, if people don't even come, then you're guaranteed you're not going to get any benefit out of it. So even today, right, if there are associate members or charter members who have not come, they are missing out because, they are not getting inspired by the amazing speakers you have lined up. They're not going to make these contacts. And so, you always have to make the first step of at least showing up. If you don't show up, then there's just no chance. So that's that. The other thing, and Ranjana and we've been talking about this earlier as well, is we do need inspiring people to be a part of the network, because each one of us wants to get inspired or rub shoulders with somebody who's better than us, right? So if I come here and, if I meet Mr. Balasubramaniam, I said, okay, yes, I met somebody, I would, get inspired by what he has built. or any of these, right? Or we have our Padman here. We've all seen the movie and said, hey, this is amazing. I've got to meet him in person. So you need to have some very star caliber people in the group where others feel that, yes, I should also come and I also will benefit, right? And so that's the other part of it. And what we do is, even in TiE Silicon Valley, right? So we have all of the who's who in the industry as part of our charter members. So if you see the CEO of Adobe, Shantanu Narayan, he's a part of that. If you say take Sundar Pichai of Google, he's a part of the TiE charter members. So everybody who's who, right? Satya Nadella of Microsoft, he's a charter member of TiE Seattle. So you need to go and get these people. And sometimes what happens is it takes a group of people. So for example, if we need a Satya Nadella, for example, we will ask Sundar and we will ask Shantanu, these two big guys, to say, hey, you know what, come with us, we need to rope this person in. Now, how is Satya Nadella going to say no to Sundar Pichai, right? And so then that's how that happens. So when they come, others also come saying, hey, I'll get to have an evening or a lunch with these people. So you really need to do that. And Coimbatore has its own rock stars, so let's together go and bring them in. Any other questions? Pradeep, I know you've been waiting for a question. I'm catching the people who I know are not shy about speaking.
Yeah. This one is more from your July Systems acquisition, right? A lot of us here, entrepreneurs, we are very anxious that entrepreneurship has become like Bollywood. It's become very glamorous. So all the entrepreneurs who are here, can you tell them the non-glamorous part of those things? Because everyone wants to become a unicorn, but they don't know what goes behind it. And you have been through that journey. So can you just share a few moments about that?
So, in 2015, when Prime Minister Modi came to the Silicon Valley, this was right after his first victory in 2014, so the next year he came to the Silicon Valley. And TiE Silicon Valley co-hosted his visit. So, I was there, we took him to, the usual Facebook and the tours we take, we met Zuckerberg and all these guys. So, the PM came back and he said, I've been very impressed with the value that all of you have been creating there, especially people of Indian origin. He said, do something for the country and let's bring the same culture here. So TiE had, we pretty much drafted the Startup India policy that today, you must have heard of. And so, we sort of did the Startup India policy, and then in 2016, I think in Jan of 2016, the PM launched the Startup India policy at the Vigyan Bhavan in Delhi. And I was there, at the launch as well. And I want you to actually go to YouTube and Google that and watch that video, because one of the things I had predicted at that point, and on the panel, my fellow panelists were Bansal of Flipkart, we had, Ritesh Agarwal of Oyo Room, Radhika Agarwal, bunch of, all the darlings of the industry. And I was the only one who said, it's not important to be a unicorn, it's important to create profit in your business. It doesn't matter how large or how small your business is. You could be a chai wala, you could be a samosa wala, but you have to make profits in the business. And most of these people have been running behind valuations and saying, okay, let's become a unicorn. And, I actually really wonder if some of these people will ever make profits, right? And so I don't want to name names, but we've all been using their apps, etc. And so even for the young entrepreneurs in the audience, I want to tell you that this bubble will burst. The correction has already started. And we have seen this movie before, right? I mean, I'm old enough where 99, 2000 .com boom, I've lived through that. And so I know that this doesn't end well. So, don't go after valuations, don't go after being a unicorn. Just focus on what a business is supposed to do, is generate profits. Did that answer your question, or I think? Okay, all right. Do you have time for a few more questions? Okay, yeah, I think I see.
One last question.
Sure, thanks.
Good morning, Mr. BJ Arun. Nice to hear you, the technical words like Linux, supercomputer, since I was working as a Linux admin in Singapore. Okay, one thing what you told me a while ago is that you told, okay, take part in TiE and don't expect, but try to give the society. Okay, now I'm an entrepreneur. We are into machinery manufacturing. So we are at the very starting stage of the business. So how would I have that feeling of giving to the society when I myself is struggling to sustain myself into the in the initial stage of the business? Just to getting your guidance, that's what I'm looking for. Thank you.
Yeah. So when I say, come with no expectations, what I mean is don't make it transactional. That if I come here, suddenly I'm going to find a VC and I'm going to go back with a bag of money, or I'm going to find a customer or whatever. Come here saying that, what, this is a fantastic, very credible organization that fosters entrepreneurship. Doesn't matter what stage of life you are. You could be starting, on month 1 of your entrepreneurship. You could be a student. You could be whatever. But if you're interested in entrepreneurship, come and at least volunteer here, right? A conference like this, there are countless hours of volunteer work which has gone into this, right? I mean, otherwise we just can't do this. We are a not-for-profit. We can't be spending big bucks doing all of this. So I'm sure lots of volunteer opportunities are there. At a minimum, come and volunteer. Now, when you're there, when you're seen, when people see what you can do, that's when good things happen. I don't want to sound very spiritual, but the whole thing about the Bhagavad Gita, right? Do your thing without really expecting any rewards, and the rewards happen, sort of automagically. Sure, Hema. So Hema asked the question, what are 3 common mistakes startups should avoid early on? I think one thing you do, most entrepreneurs early on do, is they don't value the equity in their companies enough, because you think, well, I'm not worth anything anyway today. So they give away equity very, very easily, whether it is to investors, whether it's to advisors or whatever. And I have seen entrepreneurs where they regret it later on, right? And so what you don't want to do is be creating value for other people, right? And so yes, I mean, you have to share the equity, but don't give away too much of equity early on, because at some point you will become valuable. And when you are valuable, then you shouldn't say, oh God, 80% of my equity is already gone. Who or what am I working for? So that's one common mistake which I think entrepreneurs should avoid. The other thing that entrepreneurs should avoid is spending too much. And we go through cycles where the last few years, the the funding market has been very, very generous, right? So you see all these, SoftBank type companies coming and pumping billions of dollars into companies. Don't lose the fiscal discipline, because the more money you're spending on fancy offices and perks, etc., that means more of your equity is gone. And also what happens is that besides the equity going away, that funding does change at some point, right? I mean, and you can already see the early signs of that now. The whole funding market is drying up because there is a correction in the marketplace. And the third advice I could give is you can't or shouldn't become too sentimental about your business as well, which means that at the right time, if a Crompton Greaves comes and wants to buy your company, Hema, you should sell. Okay? Yeah. So great. Well, thank you so much.
One last question, Bijay.
Sure. Where is the question coming from? Oh, yeah.
Arun.
Please. Yeah.
Yes, Arun. I have a question on valuation. Now it's more of arbitrary and subjective. Is it true globally, or where do you see the valuation will be in the next 12 to 18 months' time?
Yeah. So I think, there are different metrics for valuation. I mean, there are market comps. So, you could look at other companies, let's say, which are publicly traded or have a certain valuation, and compare your company with that and say, okay, how do we compare? But I think, just you have to, I mean, especially if you're focused on profits and, there are metrics on how valuations are computed. And so there is a healthy medium between, there was a time in India where people only looked at what was your revenue and profit and gave you some multiple of that. That is in another extreme, right? But you also have extremes where people are giving crazy valuations, right? Tens of billions of dollars of valuation saying that they're going to build something. So I think, we have to have a healthy balance between what is the PE ratio, etc., versus what potential the company, could have. So I think, there is no exact science to that. But again, one cannot get too hung up on the valuation as well. Particularly now, I think, the correction or the bubble is bursting. So I think we will see things change. Great. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to be around all day and happy to answer questions during the breaks. Thank you.
Thank you, Arun.
And wishing GreenCon all the best. One other thing I also want to make a quick pitch. Subbu will beat me up if I don't say this. The TiE Hyderabad people are hosting the TiE Global Summit in December this year. I think it's December 12th and 13th. At some point, I think Subbu is also going to come and pitch it. But if you do have an opportunity, do go visit TiE Global Summit. Again, thousands of very, very eminent entrepreneurs will be coming from all over the world to Hyderabad in December. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijay.